chant or oli, asking our ancestors to guide us, to give us the strength to get us to this last session. All through. Also to help us communicate or get the computers communicating to get it up. So anyway, by the way, thank you so much for welcoming us.
O na mea huna no iau, o na mele. E ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, kai ke mai luna mai e. O na mea huna no iau, o na mele, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai, ka ike mai luna mai e. O na mea huna no e au, o na mele, e ho mai, e ho mai, e ho mai. Mahalo. Thank you so much for joining us as we invited our ancestors to guide us as we do this session with you folks, which is what Ehomai is about, is inviting our ancestors to do that for us. If you are looking for the Beyond Google Facilitating Indigenous Information Stewardship, you are in the right place. And this particular session is talking about our project, which is E Noela Ikaike, to search for knowledge. So bringing information literacy and Hawaiian databases into communities. So it was a very exciting project for us. So we're looking forward to sharing it with you. One of the things that we did do in our evaluations was pull together all the words that sort of popped out at us in the evaluations, and we did this word cloud to kind of talk about that. And you'll see a lot of words like curriculum and training. You'll see the names of some of the databases we talked about, like Ulukau and Papakilo, Hawaiian. You'll also see things like academic and ali'i and participant and language and resources. So you're seeing kind of the hive mind of our entire group that we trained over the course of this one-year project. But before we go any further, I want to introduce everybody because we're all going to be participating in this conversation. My name is Maile Alau. I'm the Executive Director of Hawaii Maoli. We are a Native Hawaiian serving nonprofit organization located in Honolulu. We work in the areas of cultural education and cultural preservation. And we are very proud to be the fiscal sponsor for this project. So we are the nonprofit entity that the monies came to for IMLS. And I'm also the project director. We also have Dr. Keikilani Meyer. She's been our project coordinator. She is a PhD student in library and information sciences. And she has done yeoman's work in putting this project together and making it happen. Dr. Reyes. She's our curriculum developer, but she's also a kumu hula, which in our language is a teacher of hula. She's an archivist. She's a librarian. She teaches in Hawaiian in our language. So, and she's currently a teacher at Manoa, so University of Hawaii at Manoa. And then Dr. Rae-Anne Montague. She has graciously joined us as our evaluator, also a PhD in information and library sciences, but more importantly has a really wonderful perspective to bring information and knowledge together. So she's been very helpful. She was at Hawaii Pacific University. She's still teaching there, but is currently located here on the continent. So this is your team, and I'm going to hand things off to them to talk about it. But before I do that, because we only have half an hour, we wanted to create an opportunity for you folks to ask questions even if we're not here. So this is our back channel. So it's todaysmeet.com/ATALM17. In the name section, just type your email address. And if you get questions we don't have time to answer it, then send them here and we'll respond to them. So take a picture of this particular screen because we'll bring it up again. But for the moment, it's good to have that information. So, oops, sorry. Oh, Kalamai, sorry. Get your picture.
By the way, I have to point out, Elena Farden was the one that came up with this idea.
Yes.
She did help us out with a few other slides with the graphics. I want to give credit where it's due.
Yeah.
Mahalo.
We all have pictures? Are we good? Awesome. Okay. So I'm going to hand it off to Keiki to talk about how we put this project together.
Okay, aloha kako. So actually, kahea, it means to the call. It's for Hawaiians, it's the call. And the call can come in many different forms. And what happened was with this project, how it came to be was people in our community, especially, so there was a Po'okumu principal from one of the charter schools, Halau Kumana. There was a parent, her child was going to Halau Kumana. And actually, one of the DOE educators, Kupuna, who is an elder, we call him elder. And they came to me at different times and basically said, Keiki, we really need to know what kind of Hawaiian resource databases are out there so we can use it in our classrooms. And then the Po'okumu wanted, and the parent, the Makua, said, I really want to make sure that our students that graduate, or my child who's going to be graduating from this school, when they go into college, that they're able to navigate an academic library. And that's really what the kahea means. It's about answering that call. Sometimes you don't want to answer it, but it keeps on coming. Okay. And then, as it says here, of course, our first partners was Halau Kumana, which was that Po'okumu, and then the DOE Kupuna, and then the other one was Hawaiian Civic Club members, which I am a member, Maile is a member of. And a lot of, some of you might not know, is that a lot of our native Hawaiian people are actually here on the continent. And so for Hawaiian Civic Clubs, we're actually located throughout the United States. And so it's really about reaching out, not only to our people there on the islands, but also definitely for the ones that are not, not at their home. So that's the kind of, and then of course, while we were going through the project, we were establishing new partners.
Keiki, this is you.
Okay. Okay, so. Yeah.
Okay, so first of all, thank you, Keiki. It's so wonderful. She pooped out already. Anyway, our first goal is to increase library information search strategies, and we wanted to get our students, or high school students especially, prepared for high school. Prepared for university. So we took them out to various repositories here. So some of the pictures include pictures that were taken at the University of Hawaii Maoli, Hamilton Library, and you can see students in the stacks. Over here, we're up on the 5th floor of the Hawaiian Collection, looking at primary documents. And then other one, we're also in the classroom at Anuenui, Kekula Anuenui, which is a Hawaiian immersion school. The 3 modules that I developed with another Kumu are listed here. These 3 modules, as you can see, have screenshots, and these are taken straight from the PowerPoint presentations that I work with the students. So the first module, I like the title, My Google Valino. Don't just Google. So it's really teaching students about discerning between fake news and real news. Second module is Yahayamea, his scholarly resource. What is a scholarly resource? So we looked at how do you identify credible resources. And so this is when the databases come in. And when we talk about Hawaiian databases, once again, it's about databases that refer to Hawaiian people, native Hawaiians, and the culture and language. And then module 3 was Pehela e Huliai, how do we search? So this module was about teaching effective research strategies.
Okay, so goal 2. So this is our target audience, as I mentioned, and so we were actually looking at kupuna, so there's the Department of Education in Hawaii, they actually hire kupuna elders as resource teachers, and they actually teach in the elementary schools. And that's why it was really critical to have them have access to these databases, because they teach the culture, they teach the language, and they also teach the history. So these were very valuable resources for them. And then the thing is that what was kind of nice is that in these photos, I mentioned the Civic Club members. So in actuality, let's see, this one was, we're in Chicago, Civic Club members, yeah, we do have Civic Club members in Chicago. That was in Washington, D.C. this was in Las Vegas. This was the Civic Club convention. And so, as you can see, we really love these pictures because it really shows, how engaged our people were. They really wanted, once they found out that these resources were available, and this was the catch, I used to always say, remember, you can research in your living room in your pajamas. You do not have to go back, especially for them, right? They're far away from home. You do not have to go on the plane and go, so you can go to the Hawaii State Archives, or you can go to, in your living room in your pajamas. And they were just like, oh, that's so awesome. And these are just these are, of course, the main Hawaiian resource databases that we started with. We actually started with Ulukau. I'm really kind of familiar with that database. And then we have Papakilo, which is the Office of Hawaiian Affairs. Huapala, that was the one with Ku'ulei. Awakonohiki is the one that's coming out of UH Manoa, Center for Hawaiian Studies. And then also Ku'ulei had mentioned this one, so this was another resource that we came across. And then Chronicling America. I know it's not a Hawaiian, newspaper thing, but they do have articles, newspaper articles from throughout the United States. And it's like my Ohana, I'm a Meyer, so my Ohana actually came from South Carolina. And so maybe for especially people who are doing genealogy, they might be able to find articles about their Ohana from where they originally came from. And then actually Ray had added a digital public library and then the Hati Trust. So we were also learning as we were going along throughout the project. Many more databases that were available.
Kule.
Okay, so after working for a year, going to various schools, even the libraries, these are lots of lessons that we learned. First and foremost, we needed to create relative lessons. Relative coming from our own perspective, our Hawaiian perspective, rather than just translating information literacy terms into Hawaiian. It needed to be something much more meaningful. So what I did was I drew upon ancestral knowledge and our storytelling. So a lot of our students are raised with storytelling or mo'olelo, and they're familiar with particular mo'olelo. So I used a few. So for example, one was called Kahalaopuna. It's about a beautiful princess, but you see how this connects with information literacy. It's about a beautiful princess, and her husband was listening to these heinous rumors that people were saying about his wife. It was terrible. He beat her, killed her. So one of the lessons from the story is don't believe everything you hear. So that was to connect it with Google and everything else all around. Also to be able to discern, because a lot of people get their news from online websites. So it's to be able to discern what is real, what is a reliable website, that sort of thing. So that really connected. It made our ancestral knowledge meaningful and relevant in today's time. Okay. And also we had to be flexible. Some other schools were able to give us 3 days. So for example, I could use half a day working the class activities, have lunch, and then the other half we went on field trips or huaka'i. We went to various sites, such as I mentioned a few slides earlier, went to University of Hawaii. We also went to the state archives. We went to the law library at the University of Hawaii. We even went to Lakamelono, which is a Hawaiian resource center out at the Center for Hawaiian Studies. So we went all over to repositories. However, one other school with Kamakau, this is my children's school, they were only able to give me 1 hour. So I had to look at all 3 lessons and how do I pull from that and get the main ideas and to make my moment, my time with them, significant, make an impact. So I had to be real flexible with them. In addition to working our relationships with school officials as well as teachers, we have to be very flexible. Another thing is we learned that we have to rely upon our own personal relationships, our friends, our families. For example, I remember asking one of my hula sisters if we can work with her on this project. Because sometimes we forget, we do know people. It's just a lot of times we're in different instances, whether it's hula class or in church, that sort of thing that, they actually do other things outside of that. They have a professional life. And many times we have interests that are mutual. So that was neat too, working our own network. But we call it talking story. So that way we do a lot of talking story. You can tell already. You can really tell. And another thing we learned is to be sensitive to our learners' needs. Some learners, for example, really sharp with the internet, with Others need a little bit more coaching. Also, some students are not too quick with literacy. So have to take some time to hold back the class a little bit, work with the child, get the child caught up, and where others who are ahead of us, move them on to the next assignment. So there's a lot of things going on in an hour's worth of time with differentiated learning, lots of things going on. But it was an awesome learning time for all of us. Very humbling too. We all learned a lot.
Keiki?
Okay, I just want to add to what Kuuleilani mentioned. I have to really just acknowledge the Po'okumu, the principal for Kekula Kaipuni o Anuenue, the Hawaiian immersion school, because we actually went up to him and said, hey, we got this great project. Would you be willing for us to come into your, to service your students? And he was just so wonderful to work with. That's the kind of people I like to work with. I mean, he says, you know what, Keiki, our students really need this. You know what? In fact, I want my librarian to go. I want one of my teachers to go. And you know what? I'm gonna pay for the sub. And for schools to give out resources, that says a lot. And so he was wonderful. And then Maile and I, we were at the first meeting with him, and then we said, and then he said, so are you gonna be able to offer this in Hawaiian? And we said, absolutely. And I'll tell you, the look on his face. I think Maile and I, when we got, we kind of was teary-eyed, yeah. I mean, he was just so appreciative. And so that really shows us as a Native Hawaiian community that we have to be able to put more effort in trying to make sure that it's available. These types of workshops are available in Hawaiian, but it was just exciting about that. We learned so much from our kupuna and from our Hawaiian civic clubs, and we really learned, I think, for one thing, like it says on the slide, is that everybody has different levels of computer skills. And so we know, for those, we work in communities, is that you have to be willing to meet whoever you are servicing at their level and be able to work, to be able to work with that and not make them feel funny kind, And so that's, and then the other thing is you want to make sure, like how Kuuleilani was saying, that it's relevant. So we always, before we started the workshop, we would ask them, what are you interested in? Okay, so we have all of these resource databases, there's all this content. But we want to make sure, hey, the time that you spend with us, it's gonna be valuable. You're gonna use what we share with you. And I'll tell you, Auntie Danny, guess what was the number one?
Genealogy.
And so, so that we wanted to make sure we address what their needs. And then, we had to make them feel welcome. And that, it was a safe space. That if you never know how to turn on the computer, it was okay. You know what I mean? So that time to time. And I think that we kind of, we really made an effort to do that. And it's partnerships. Relationships, it's all about that. It's our connections that we have.
So one of the other things that we learned a lot about community outreach. Keiki already mentioned that our Hawaiian community is much more spread out than the lots of tribal communities. So we have all of our Native people who are all across all of our island chain, and then all across the continent, everywhere from Southern California all the way up to Maine. So there were pockets, and how do we get that information out to such a huge diaspora? It was a real challenge for us. We did learn also that we had to activate our own networks, really leverage those relationships that we had in order to support our project. So whether that was a relationship with somebody in a state organization or a relationship at a school or a relationship at a community organization, we use those relationships very positively. The word used is so harsh, but very positively to help us get our project moving forward. The biggest challenge we found out about, you saw that list, that huge list of databases. No one knew about them. No one knew about it. 90% of the people who participated in our things had no idea that these databases existed. They were created for researchers, by researchers, and they were not accessible to the community. So we've got educators who needed curricula, they couldn't use it. They had kumu hula teachers who wanted access to their songs, they couldn't utilize it. Kanaka, the regular people who wanted to learn about their mo'oku ahau, their genealogy, they had no idea. And language learners who wanted access to language resources. All these folks had no idea these databases existed, and it was a huge challenge. So if you are going to develop a database, please build in money for community outreach. Please, These are $1 million projects. $10,000 for community outreach will go a really, really long way. Kule.
Thank you, Maile. Also, we learned about the evolving role of Native Hawaiian librarians, just like all other librarians. We're going from the librarian typical role in the classroom or inside the library to actually going out to teach, as well as being information specialists. Another thing that's challenging is we have many Hawaiian language speakers and we have many Hawaiian librarians. There are a few that are actually both. So that's the challenge. And so it can be done, it just takes a lot of extra work. So I had to learn, for example, how to step up my skills as a Hawaiian language speaker and learn about the technical terms about information literacy. So what I did was I turned to my 12-year-old who attends Kekula Samuel Manaukalani Kamakau School and asked her, Salty, what does your teacher say about research this? Look that. Turn to this page. So I had to ask her for that as well as talk to other teachers to make sure the terms that I use was in alignment with the terms that they use in the classroom too. So really good job. So it's about matching Hawaiian knowledge content, language, as well as the specific skills of teaching information literacy. Another thing is to inspire others, not only to seek new knowledge. We taught about the various different reliable, free, robust databases, but also that they can actually contribute to them. For example, Huapala was mentioned a little bit a while ago. It's the database for Hawaiian music. Hula dancers particularly like to go to that. And I saw several hula people. I said, I know you have songs that's not listed in a database. Please go and upload it. Talk to the webmaster, because I've done that too with my Kumu stuff, my instructor, to upload it. So not only we use what's there, but we actually create new knowledge and share. Another database is Ulu Ulu, which is the moving image database. It's located over West Oahu. That holds many historical videos, family film. An example of this is the widow of Don Ho. You guys all familiar, Tiny Bubbles? His widow donated videos, lots of videos and film reels. So Ulu Ulu has the capability to convert this film into digital files. So I'm encouraging, especially the older kupuna, that if they have these films, instead of just having it sit, in the garage or the bed somewhere in the closet, take it to Ulu Ulu so they can take care of it and then digitize it. So that way they can see. A lot of times we don't see this stuff anymore because we don't have the equipment to open it up because technology changes so quickly. So once again, it's to inspire others to not just seek new knowledge, but to create new knowledge. That's a whole nother dimension. Very exciting.
And then actually, so I know that you went to Mukutu, right? So
Yes.
there's actually programs, right, or mechanisms whereas you could add content if you wanted to. So Mukutu, and actually even Madeline, she's over there, sweet. We kind of roped her in. But she's also with StoryCorps, so if you wanted to interview, kupuna and that kind of stuff, or within your community, your tribes, so you actually have the tools to do that. So you can. Now we are able to create our knowledge to preserve it. Yeah.
Keiki, do you want to speak to the traditional role of librarians versus what we are now?
I'm not a traditional person, but I think we were kind of talking amongst ourselves, and Ray, just share what whoever, but and even like Covella knows.
Oh, yeah.
It's like librarians. The role of librarians, of course, is changing. Yeah, I think I'm speaking to the choir because we're kind of playing librarians here, and especially a lot of us are within our communities. You cannot sit in your library and wait for them to come. It ain't going to happen, right? Unless you have a really good relationship with them, and then they're going to come in droves. On the other hand, you have to be able to go out beyond those four walls. I truly feel that you have to be able to go out into your community and serve your community, because that's where they're at. And then once you establish that relationship, and they're okay, they feel good, they are going to come. They're going to come in droves, but it's not going to happen, quickly. But yeah.
I'd like to add, librarians are also expected to be teachers, educators too. So preach that.
Yeah.
So as Keiki said, what we did with this project was exactly that. We went out of our area and we tried to reach as many people as possible in a year, which is not easy. So, but we did do presentations on the continent. So Chicago, Washington, D.C., Las Vegas. Keiki went to Molokai, partnering with another agency to be able to do a presentation there. And then, of course, we did multiple presentations on the island of Oahu, which is where we're based.
So we were in rural communities like Wahiwa, which is actually very, it's rural for us on Oahu. Wahiwa, we went to Waianae. Kapolei is not too rural. And then also Waikiki, definitely not rural, but that's where the school that we were servicing for the kupuna educator, that's where she was located.
We also discovered that pilina, for us, that means relationships. Really, this is what you saw in the introduction to this session. We had to create relationships and utilize relationships across many different areas. So whether it was in education with Kamehameha Schools, the University of Hawaii, state and government agencies, Alulike, Office of Hawaiian Affairs, Hawaii State Public Library System, and then community and nonprofit organizations. Aloha Center Chicago is how we wound up there. The Hawaiian Civic Club movements, the Native Hawaiian Education Association. So those relationships with the entities in your communities that you can identify that can help you, take care of those relationships, malama those relationships, bring them food, do whatever it is that you need to do to make sure that those relationships are going to be able to help support you in your project. And then Ray is going to talk a little bit about our project outcomes.
Sure. So this project, this particular year of the project, as we mentioned earlier, there were two key goals. So working with students and then working with community members. And at the beginning, we had hoped to reach at least 140 participants. We ended up actually reaching over 200. So it sort of grew. As we saw, there were new opportunities to make connections. And as we were able to build on that and connect even more. And, it's already been said, the different places where different workshops were offered. As part of the project, we included assessment, so learning assessment when we were having these workshops for half a day or for 3 days. We would do pre-test and post-test to make sure that students were understanding what was being presented, and also project evaluations. So at the end of each workshop, we asked for feedback, for input. As was said earlier, at the beginning of the workshops, we also asked to help to have guidance. We really saw sort of this as a collaborative endeavor. What do you want to be able to research? And so then the instructors could guide the process more. But as was said before, it was just very revealing that when we asked folks, for example, in this particular example, which databases did you know about that existed before this workshop? It was often, I knew about one, or sometimes I didn't know about any. So there's a real gap. And we have some great resources, some great systems. They're like secret, Like no one who said they were interested in doing research on Hawaiian culture, on their families, they didn't seem to know how to connect to these resources. So as was said, instruction, information literacy, community outreach, just so important. Less than 25% of the participants had prior knowledge of the databases before we got started. Happily, at the end of our presentations, we had over 90% saying, okay, now we can go and incorporate these databases in what we're looking to do, or personally or with our community groups. So we can see that impact is going even beyond. And now we're looking for the coming year to think about what can we do to facilitate greater access and greater use and greater connections.
So one of the things that also grew out of our evaluations was this idea that how do we get to these databases? Because we're throwing out all these things, right? ulukau.org and uluulu.org, and there were lots of different databases. So from the evaluations and in the middle of the project, we said, hey, we need to create a portal so folks can get to all the resources in one place. So we did that, and this is actually housed on Hawaii Maoli's website. But right at the top, you can see it says Enoela Ikaike. If you went to this conference and you knew the name of it, you could click on that and get right to a list of all the databases. It describes what they are. It describes where they're at. There's a screenshot of it, and there's a link. So you just click on it and get to where you need to go. So that grew out of our evaluations as well. And so now it's time to move forward. And the question becomes, how do we do that? So, Keiki?
Well, we said that earlier. It's about making sure that if you're doing digital projects, and we actually heard a lot of people saying that in the MLISc grantee workshop that we were at on Monday, is that make sure you include, as part of your design, your project design, to include, community outreach, some way to disseminate. And then I think the other thing is that we were talking about is that you hire a librarian. Because actually what we found was that a lot of these databases, they didn't ask a librarian. So that's another thing. That's good job security. But yeah, we are, like Ray said, we're going to move on. So we were really fortunate enough to get awarded another grant. And but what we're looking at is we're looking at teachers now because we want to build capacity. And especially we're looking at charter schools in the state of our home, but we're also looking at Department of the Public Schools because there are teachers that they actually are required to teach Hawaiian history in grades. I think it's grades 4 and 7 and maybe 9, and some of them have no idea, no prior knowledge of our history, and so we're just trying to see how we can really be able to build that capacity for our educators. And the thing is that in addition to the workshops, my background is I used to work for Alalike Native Hawaiian Library, and so my mentor, Maile Alau, she always used to tell me that Keiki, if we can get a book into a Hawaiian family, then we've done our job. And so we were able to provide resources. We included a budget for the sites that we went to make sure that not only they had access to database resources, but also print. And so they could actually add to their collection, so they were able to buy books, whatever they needed, computers so they could access these databases. But we also, for you who have been very kind enough to stay for our presentation, we also have a makana for you. It's actually, it's a hanau ka'ua. It's pretty, not that recent, but pretty recent, I think. And it's a rain book, so it's actually all the names of the rain in Hawaiian. And actually, it's a mother-daughter team, actually from Kamehameha. The mama is a teacher at Kamehameha, so we have some people here. I'm going to ask you to stand up. I know I'm going to put you on the spot, but they are also from Kamehameha schools. Can you please stand?
Just say hi. Just say hi. Yeah, just say hi.
You are. So, but they're connected, to the publication within, because it's Kamehameha Publishing, and but we want to share that with you as well, because we think providing resources to our families, communities is important.
So I think we have a couple minutes for questions, because I know the bus leaves at 5:15 for tonight's activity. So use the back channel to ask questions if you guys need to get going. Do please take a copy of the book with you. So you know how you hear often like Alaskans have 3,000 words for snow. That's the tale. Hawaiians really do have different names for the rains depending on what area you're from and what valley it's in. So it's a great book. It might be something interesting for you to look at one night when you have nothing else to do, because librarians and library people have nothing to do. And thank you for staying all the way to the end to be with us today. We really appreciate it.
And chocolate.
Yeah, and there's chocolate. Please take chocolate.